how quick this week is running by. And because it's a Thursday, you don't yet have any idea who's going to be on the full Damage Report show, do you? But you should, because we got Wozni Lambre. It's going to be awesome. I've been doing a lot of work with Anna and on the main show, and for the first time, we'll be co-hosting the Damage Report in just a little bit. And I have to say, while the news over the past couple of weeks hasn't always been the most exciting, though yesterday ended up being pretty fun, I think we got a hell of a rundown actually for today. We got some big topics we're going to be discussing. We've got a supersized Meanwhile In with some fun news from around the world. Some not so fun, but I think it's going to be a pretty good show. I think you should definitely check it out. I think that if you're already here for the pre-show, you're probably anticipating that you will, but I approve of that idea. And thank you everybody who's already here. I saw that there were some early super chats, so I want to make sure that I don't miss those. Lauren says, hey Dragon Squad, it's my birthday today. I'm turning 25 and I'm happy to be celebrating with you all. Lauren, happy birthday. Thank you for being here with us. Probot Video says, hi John, did you know that Johnny Bananas is a reference to Beverly Hills Cop? I just watched it again and Eddie Murphy says it in the opening scene. I did not know that. I did grow up watching those movies. It's possible it's been lurking around in there for a long time. Okay, so we not only have this big, awesome rundown for the full show, we also have a good number of stories. Some big ones, some little updates that I want to go to for this pre-show as well. And I want to start off with this. A couple of weeks ago on the pre-show, we talked about the fact that the Virginia legislature had moved forward on getting rid of the death penalty. And we said that at that point, it's only waiting on the governor to sign it. And it seemed like almost certainly it was going to happen. Well, Ralph Northam has actually signed it. And so Virginia has become the first southern state to get rid of the death penalty, which I would not have expected, if you'd asked 10 years ago that Virginia would be doing that. But hey, great news. A little bit more sane, rational government there. I'll take those little victories where we can. Wanted to let you know about this. I think it was trending on Twitter. It was a presidential salute. And when I saw that, I thought, wait, what year is this? This sounds like the Obama thing. This sounds like oh God, it's going to be some stupid thing about whether the president saluted someone. And I was mostly right, although not entirely, because it turns out it wasn't actually about the president. It was about the vice president and the fact that apparently Kamala Harris didn't salute someone once on video. And so what was trending was a fact check saying the U.S. Vice President is not required to salute military personnel, experts and fact checkers report. And look, they've got a whole bunch more stuff about that. I don't care, because I don't care about any of this, nor should anyone care about any of this. Whether Kamala Harris at one point saluted someone or not, or whether there's some bylaw, who the fuck cares? I mean, I know who cares. Well, no, I don't know who cares. I know who pretends to care. And you might be inclined to say, well, you're talking about right-wing media, right? So right-wing media or politicians are going to play this up to appeal to their base who does actually care about this. But I don't even believe that. I don't think that some rando living in Kentucky's day was ruined by the fact that she didn't salute them. What they want, both the elected official and that rando in Kentucky, is a reason to be mad at Kamala Harris, or generally at the White House. And if you choose this as your reason to be angry, it seems like you're standing up for the troops. Even if, that particular rando in Kentucky a couple of months ago might have been totally fine with some Proud Boy bashing in the head of a cop or something. Now they get to go back to pretending that they care about the troops. This is just the latte salute all over again. And so welcome to the Biden years. So we're going to weather this time trying to make substantive critiques of Joe Biden, what he does, and more often what he doesn't do. We're actually going to have some of that on the show today. And the right is not generally going to do much of that because they can't push him on these particular issues because they know what people really want on these issues. And what they want is not the right-wing, solution, insofar as the solution has even been offered. What they want is the government to do something. Now, they don't want to get people riled up to potentially push for that. So a lot of it's just going to be stupid bullshit about this. It's going to be, oh, he tripped up the stairs. She didn't salute the right person. Whose motion of their body today can we critique? That's what it's going to be. there are plenty of reasons to have an issue with Kamala Harris. They have chosen the dumbest one, and that is just going to be the first of many instances of that. See a lot of birthday wishes going out for Lauren. Jim says, Stick Dragon does not care. Agreed. Jade Dunn says, I'm finally eligible to get the vaccine. Take my money for celebration. Thank you. Very glad that you're able to get it. And you know what? Since you have access to the vaccine, let me give you a little update on this. We know, about 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden said that he is setting this expectation that by May 1st, he would like all adults to be eligible for the vaccine. Now, he can't determine that. It's on the states to actually do it. I guess in a roundabout way, he could influence it, but he's not doing that. He's leaving it up to the states. Now, we know that there are already some states where everyone is eligible. But apparently now, more than 40 states say that they will meet or beat Biden's May 1st deadline for vaccine eligibility for all adults. So the vast majority of the country is going to be able to keep to or potentially even do one better on Biden's expectation there. Now, the good news is that means that for many of you already have the vaccine. For more of you, you will soon get access to it and all of the good stuff that comes from that, which we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about. The bad thing, though, is that California is not on that list yet. So I may have to scramble to catch up to all of you a little bit later on. But anyway, what this means is not that the pandemic will be gone by any means. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to still be careful in public. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to get sick and die. Some people can't get vaccinated. Some people will choose not to get vaccinated. Some people who get vaccinated will still get sick, and a few will die. But the numbers will move massively in the right direction, and we are on the path to being able to go back to normal. It's going to have taken significantly more than a year, which I still can't believe is the case, but we are moving in the right direction. Now, kind of tied to that, I just wanted to briefly mention this thing that you might have seen in the news yesterday, and it's this meeting that Joe Biden had with historians in the White House, where they talked about the opportunity that is presented to him, that we have an expectation that the economy is going to do better coming forward. He has unified control of government, aside from the Supreme Court, that'll inevitably knock down a lot of what he does, but we're moving on. Progressives are pushing him to do a lot. So all the variables seem to be lining up for Joe Biden to actually try to accomplish things. And combined with, this is the most amazing thing. Biden loves the growing narrative that he's bolder and bigger thinking than President Obama, which is just, oh God, it doesn't it smell a little bit like Donald Trump? Oh, I like the idea that they think I'm bold and I have big ideas. I guess, sure. Well, look, if public pressure, or even kind of the opposite of pressure, public adulation, if that can lead Biden to do bigger things, then sure. I will stop occasionally along the way to point out that that's kind of sad, nor should it be required, but if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. This is an article in Axios. Now, they're just reporting on the meeting, but what Biden means when he says bigger, bolder ideas, I really do wonder about that. Like, is it impossible that some sort of grand bargain couldn't be what he's thinking of when he says that? There's a lot of evidence that, from the recent past that would make one question this. Like, okay, he thinks, oh God, he's big, he's bold, he doesn't wait. Should I cancel some student loan debt? Maybe 10,000 eventually, but not me, more like the legislature, and I'll sign it. Okay, well then that's not really big, bold thinking. Now, if Biden announced in an hour, I'm canceling 50,000, I'm doing it myself, it's going into effect in 2 weeks, that is big, that is bold. It doesn't get rid of all student loan debt. There's a lot of people that want more to be canceled, but that would be huge. That is the sort of thing that should result in him like getting all excited in these meetings with historians. I don't know, the idea that he's going to have an infrastructure bill that's slightly smaller than what Joe Manchin was calling for, that is not what I consider to be huge, bold ideas and all of that. But anyway, that's just a little check-in on what Joe Biden is apparently thinking lately. See what's going on out there. Flip says, happy Thursday, Dragons. Hey, John, just wanted to say hi. I just got my first Pfizer vac shot, and I'm ready to protest in March. That's awesome, Flip. Glad to hear that. Malin Christina, welcome to Tier 1 YouTube membership. Enjoy those emojis, including the new, you had to have been there, I guess, but the Frozen John emoji from Tuesday's show with Amanda Wynn. Jay Smart says, John, do you agree that reparations should be part of the economic relief package? The children and descendants of slaves never received compensation for their parents' work like other employees. Yes. I think it can come potentially in a lot of different forms. I think on a very minor version of this is, the debt relief for farmers. That is specifically designed to provide economic relief as an acknowledgement for decades and decades of white supremacist government policy. I think that if you had tons and tons of different versions of that adding up to a lot of money, that could be very helpful. But obviously, I am not the expert. Dare says, watching in Ireland, have a wife in Texas who just got a vaccine appointment, but we haven't seen each other in over a year. Get it together, America. Well, hopefully soon. Supposedly Texas, very soon, like in a week, is going to have it available to everyone. Now, while this is good news, as we just talked about, the sort of like dark lining to it is one of the reasons a lot of these states can afford to open it up to everyone is that there's a lot of people who don't want to get it. And so, like, to some extent, having a lot of demand and like long lines, that's bad, obviously, but it's also a sign that people are really eager to get this. I mean, we could end up like pretty much everyone who wants the vaccine gets it, and bear in mind, you might have to get booster shots and stuff, so this is an ongoing problem. And 1 in 3 Americans could just be like, no, I'm never going to get it. And so, a year from now, you could still have 100 people dying of COVID every day, totally needlessly. And look, in comparison to 4,000 in one day, it's going to be a much lower number. It's going to seem like much less of a problem. The media won't cover it as much. Even us, like we've talked about COVID more than like any other outlet, in the world, just constant coverage throughout that first year. But yeah, if it's down to 100 and it seems totally voluntary, we're probably gonna be less into it, but it's still a problem. It's still so many tragedies. And the person who dies in 2 years from COVID, who could have gotten the vaccine between now and then, like some of them will have ended up in that position for reasons that we've been diagnosing along the way. Like Fox News is like just suspicion about the vaccine. We're not saying you shouldn't get it. We're saying you should be a little bit suspicious. That's all. Anyway, Socially Democrat says, will you talk about the LAPD spending tons on police to shove out the homeless in Echo Park last night instead of investing in them? I got linked to vid. Yes, so it's a story I'm familiar with. We don't have it prepped for the show today. It's possible it's going to be on the main show, but it's something that in theory could be on tomorrow's show. Hi, John. Is that Dragon Squad laundry at the table next to the printer? Thanks. No. Well, actually, yeah, kind of. Some of it's my laundry. There's also a couple of flags that have been sent in that I haven't been able to hang yet. Okay. Let's see. DDM Star says, good morning, Dragon Daddy. Getting my first vaccine shot tomorrow. Awesome. I just love all of these names that I recognize now around the country, around the world, getting vaccines. That's awesome. Okay, so a couple of quick a-holes. The a-hole update, the a-hole report. So Jason Miller is this advisor to Donald Trump. Not only was he, around in the White House for a long time and one of the go-to people that they would send on Fox News, but he's still working with Trump. He's one of the people who Trump has sort of strung along. Well, we're finding out now that apparently he committed fraud in court to get out of having to pay child support. Weird that Trump would surround himself with dickholes. Isn't that so weird? So apparently, he was fired by a strategy firm called Teneo in 2019 after this social media thing involving Jerry Nadler or whatever. Details aren't super important, but he was fired. Now, right after he was fired, Teneo apparently still wanted him because they wanted the access to Donald Trump, but they didn't want to formally be working with him. So they apparently paid him $500,000, sort of off the books. Like the money went to this LLC that he'd sent up, but it wasn't immediately clear that that was Jason Miller that was getting the money. A lot of money, $500,000. Now, them publicly firing him while privately giving him $500,000 is bad enough. But what happened was, after he was fired and then rehired behind the scenes, he went before a Florida court and said, that he couldn't possibly pay child support. They had to change the payments because he was now unemployed, even though he was getting $500,000. And it's worse than that. It's not just that he said he was unemployed. He said, my financial situation is so bad, I can't even afford to fly down to Florida to take part in these legal proceedings. So could you get rid of my child support and not ever have us do this again? While he was being given this massive check to talk to Trump for them. What an a-hole. Now, is this going to end up really hurting him? We'll see. The media coverage around this, the fact that it's been revealed, that might result in him actually paying his obligation to his kids. Maybe. Is Fox going to bring it up when he goes on there inevitably? Is it going to hurt him? I mean, he still, as far as we know, has Trump's support. So at the end of the day, the family values crowd, they have on the one hand that this guy apparently fucks over his kids and doesn't give a shit what happens to them. On the other hand, Trump likes him. So you can weigh those and see, where do you think we're going to come out with that? I have a feeling it's pretty clear. Stefan says, I get my first vax Monday. Utah opened it up to everyone 16 plus because so many people refuse to get it. Exactly. Apparently, I am doomed to live in a state where people actually want it. Rachel Holt, thank you for your super chat. Do appreciate that. It is Jason Miller, not Stephen Miller. They're both awful, but for different reasons. They are different people. McQuackaduck says, hey, Dragon Daddy, what if I send you a light bulb to get that fixed? Also, I'm a Republican who agrees more with you guys than my Q leaders. Thank you. I don't think it's a regular light bulb. I think it's something crazy. But regardless of what type of light bulb it is, I can't get up there and change it. That's really high. Even with a ladder. That just seems dangerous. But thank you. Wayne Sugahara says, Wasabi D wants to be counted as part of the 48% of the Dragon Squad that has been shot, and I didn't cheat. Hope you get yours soon, too. Are you an essential worker? I think so. Thank you. I don't... Look, there are places in the country where members of the media are considered essential workers for a variety of reasons. Like, for instance, very early on in the pandemic, we were technically still allowed to have people here. We just didn't for months and months. That said, no, I'm 100% not an essential worker. I don't care what California or any other place say. Now, if I can maybe get the vaccine a little bit early as a result of someone not having their appointment and it was just going to be wasted, I might do that. But no, I'm not an essential worker. Now, really fast, I want to give you an update on one other a-hole. So this is Matt Walsh. He's one of those Ben Shapiro clones. There's like 30 of them on YouTube or whatever. Not particularly interesting for any reason, but I did want to rebut a point that he made in something he wrote. And it's one that it's what the Republicans believe now. So unfortunately, we have to engage with it. So people have been talking about how it is easier in some places to get a gun than it is to vote. He says, no, it isn't easier to buy a gun than a vote, but it should be. Now, both parts of that are awful. The first, because it's not true. Yes, in many states, you have to do far more paperwork over a longer period of time to be able to vote than to be able to buy your gun. And you can get that lots of places have same-day gun purchases. Not a lot of places have same-day voter registration. So it's a stupid point. It's obviously untrue, but he's a right-wing idiot, so he doesn't care about that. The second part is what more people are responding to, and that is, but it should be. Because his point here is that having a gun is a more essential right than being able to vote. And in fact, that would be bad enough. Being able to vote isn't a right at all, and far fewer people should be allowed to vote than are right now. So is this extreme in comparison to the Republican Party? No, it's a dim-witted version of what they all believe. They all believe that less people should vote. They generally are a little bit more savvy about hiding what the goal is. They clearly hate democracy. They view it as an impediment to their power, and they're right to do so. But they pretend that actually upholding democracy is why they need to do all this stuff that in the end stops people from voting. This guy's kind of dense, so he just comes out and says, no, tons of people shouldn't vote. Now, he's going to say what sort of people shouldn't vote. He's going to lie there about what he actually believes, but let's talk about this. He says gun ownership is, after all, a more important and more essential right than voting. Voting is not really a human right at all, but a privilege that ought to be reserved for those who are the most qualified to do it. Now, that's kind of a crazy thing to say. In writing an op-ed, if you're going to say a crazy thing, you should provide some sort of support for it. He's not going to do that. He's just going to say it ought to be reserved. Let's not explain why it ought to be reserved. Let's just assert it. The ability to defend yourself and your family is fundamental. We all have the God-given right to ensure our own safety and that of our loved one. We'll see, here's the thing. First of all, you don't have any God-given rights because God doesn't exist, but I'm not going to convince him of that, so again, we'll move on. What are we talking about? Are we talking about the law and the Constitution, or are we talking about things that God has bequeathed to us? If you want to continually try to mash those things together, then it can be whatever you want. You have a particular belief about what rights God gives you. Other people might have different views. Some of them you might hate or fear, Matt Walsh, like Muslims, for instance. They want, I should say, not they, Muslims. Some particular Muslims in some particular parts of the world have a particular form of a legal philosophy grounded in their religion that you guys love to get worked up about. Even though what you are describing here is your own version of Sharia. It might be different in some ways from Sharia as it's practiced internationally. Notably, in some cases, it's not that different, actually. The sorts of people you want to control and take rights away from actually has quite a bit of overlap with how some places that practice Sharia law actually do it. But anyway, so gun ownership is the most important thing, and you should definitely have gun ownership. Voting, not that important, even though, of course, the people who vote and who they vote for is what determines what gun control we get or don't get. So those things seem sort of inexplicably connected. But anyway, he goes on to say, but determining the political course of the nation is something different. It is not fundamental and should not be opened up to any warm-bodied or even cold-bodied, in some cases, person. Is that supposed to be a joke? I'm not entirely sure. In an ideal scenario, there would be tests and requirements for voting which rule out the voters who are not equipped to take part in the process and have no business involving themselves in it. That's the way it should be. That's not the way it is. Again, this is, I'm sure, from his point of view and from the point of view of the mouth breathers who he wrote it for, this is like the right-wing logic thing. He's using terms like God-given rights and all of that. He's talking about oughts, and thus he has deployed a logical argument. Nope, just saying things he wants. He's not actually providing, like I understand, these are opinions or whatever, so you're not going to be able to logically prove it, but he's not even providing support for it. He's not saying why having people who are ignorant in a particular way, and by the way, he's not even defining that exactly, but even if he were to define it, what sort of bad consequences that has resulted in. He's not trying to prove his point, he's just saying his point, which means that it is by design not capable of drawing people over to his point. It's just meant to appeal to people who already hold that position. Now, this is not new for him. Back in June 2019, he said on Twitter, every voter should be a taxpayer who can pass an 8th grade civics exam. Now, is that basically like a poll test? You know, sort of a racist way of trying to stop certain people from voting? Sure. Is it awful to believe that? Yes. But let me reassure you, he doesn't actually believe that. He's saying it because the sorts of people who wouldn't even pass the test he's talking about there love the idea of some people not being allowed to vote, and they like the idea of thinking that those people that they would weed out are ignorant in some way, but that's not true, and that's not why they'd be weeding them out. They don't want particular sorts of people to vote. You know, if they could stop libs generally, they would. Usually, they're satisfied with stopping black and brown people from voting. That is what the laws are designed to do. Sometimes college students as well. That's generally how it works. Those people are not, on average, more ignorant. And I would argue that were you to set up some sort of 8th grade civics exam as a requirement for voting, there wouldn't be a damn person in the country who typically goes to rallies and wears a red hat that would be able to actually pass that. Now, is he a particularly bright person? No. But I feel confident he's smart enough to know that the vast majority of people who are enthusiastic fans of Donald Trump and likely enthusiastic fans of him could not pass the sort of tests that he's talking about. So he is using this as an argument that is meant to be appealing to conservatives. Say the ignorant shouldn't vote, and dumb conservatives will like that, even though they, of course, would not get through that themselves, and that's not the system that they actually want to set up or are trying to set up. They're stopping particular people in certain neighborhoods from voting, making it harder by doing the voter purges and taking away polling places and all of that. Nothing of that has anything to do with ignorance. It has to do with race and sometimes socioeconomic status. So while what he's saying is awful and sort of self-servingly awful, he knows that the entire right-wing media infrastructure is based on vice signaling. He knows that in practice, were he and the people he supports in politics to get into power, they wouldn't actually be following anything like what he's saying. They would continue to do voter suppression the way they've been doing for as long as they've been doing it. So, like, everybody's saying he's saying the quiet part out loud. Kind of. I mean, he's admitting the goals, sort of, but fundamentally, even in all of that, he's still lying. Ugh. Hot Pot Biddy Dragon says, I was just given the opportunity to teach next month, so getting my first shot tomorrow. Don't need a credential, just going to be with kids, so found a way. Cool. Cool. Glad that you have access to it. Sadie Dragon says, I'm a mail carrier, essential worker, and I've worked this whole time, and we're still listed in the 3rd category, getting my second shot on the 31st. Well, that's not too far away. That is pretty good. Made money to building. How's it going? Says, I hope your package made it safely, pretty fragile. Send prayers to my stepdad for a speedy recovery. He had a stroke recently. Well, I certainly hope that he feels better soon. Hopefully the package will be here soon. Hopefully. Dave does, every once in a while, he does deliveries. Okay, so we have very little time. So I'm just going to say really quickly what the title story is about. And what it is about is something that, like, there's all the substance of healthcare, student loan debt, all these different topics lurking behind it. I am concerned about how all of those will influence the midterm elections. Elections are not the only thing that's important in politics, but they are important, obviously, because they determine so much else. Midterms, as we know and as we've said many times, generally are not great for the party that's in power. That's typically how it works. So, what is going to happen in those midterms? I'm worried about a lot of the different missteps that the Democratic Party is making and how that might influence it. But we should also bear in mind that there's concern on the other side. And apparently, a lot of Republicans working behind the scenes to try to retake the Senate are terrified. And what they're terrified about is the fact that there is that historical precedent, the idea that generally the party out of power does well in midterms. But Trump is maybe going to overpower that. And the way he's going to do that is by drawing in completely moronic candidates. People like Mo Brooks, Eric Greitens, Josh Mandel. These are people that, in theory, could gain a following and maybe win a primary because Donald Trump likes them, but that have so much baggage that, in theory, they might not make it through a general election. Now, this is America. We have very low standards for our politicians. It is possible that, regardless of Greitens, he has sexual assault allegations, made him resign as governor, but now he's running. He can potentially still get elected, sure. I mean, there are people who are known to be sexual predators that lots of voters are still fans of. But that's hardly what you would prefer if you were trying to take over the Senate. As a lot of these Republicans who are working to do that are, and they're now going on the record. We don't have time to go over the quotes, but they are saying that they're very worried that Donald Trump drawing in all of these people, like some of them will make it in. You know, Marjorie Greene is a representative. Lauren Boebert is a representative. The Senate is a little bit different. It's not fundamentally different, but it is a little bit different. And are those the sorts of candidates that you'd want running? We'll see. We'll see. A lot of it is going to depend on how seriously the media takes its job over the next 2 years, and there's still a lot of time to determine this. We could end up with history being sort of like just a fundamental change to the pattern because of Donald Trump's unique political influence on it, or we could end up with history reasserting itself. The party out of power does win, except this time the people they bring in make Ted Cruz look reasonable. So it's going to be exciting over the next couple of years. Anyway, you know what else is going to be exciting? The full Damage Report show. Because that was just the pre-show. We got Wazzy Lambre who's going to be joining us. Should be a lot of fun. That is coming up in less than 20 minutes, so I hope to see you there. Until then,